About 83% of you guys are not subscribed. Subscribing, clicking that like button, and commenting all help me out a lot in doing what I really want to do. Thank you guys so much for all your support. Alrighty. 3, 2, 1. What is going on, guys? Rogue TCG here with another Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG deck profile. Here is Cyberdragon. This is a deck I've actually built in paper. Still waiting on some of the cards to arrive. So once the cards do arrive, I will be doing an in-paper deck profile. It's going to look slightly different than this. This is a blind going second deck. Cyberdragons is an old deck from about 2005 when the original Cyberdragon was printed, just letting him special summon himself from his hand if your opponent controls a monster and you control none. And it's just kind of adapted from there to be more of a blind second, but also can go first strategy. This deck is really interesting. There's a lot of cool cards in here that lets you put up varied interaction against your opponent and also lets you OTK as easy as possible. So that's enough yapping from me. Let's talk about the Cyberdragons. Starting off our list, we are on a triple Cyberdragon core on normal summon. It can add a cyber, spell, or trap from your deck to your hand. If only your opponent controls a monster, you can banish it from your graveyard and special summon one Cyberdragon monster from your deck. And you're going to use one core effect per turn and only once per turn. And also, its name becomes Cyberdragon when in the field or in the graveyard, but please assume that for most of the Cyberdragons in the main deck. The extra deck, not quite as much, but the main deck, the Cyberdragons do consider themselves the original Cyberdragon on field and in graveyard. Next, we're on triple Cyberdragon Hertz. This name becomes Cyberdragon when in field or graveyard. Like I mentioned, you can use one of the following effects of Hertz once per turn and only once that turn. If it's special summon, we can make it level 5 until end turn, and then we can't special except for machines. Or if it's sent to the graveyard, we can add one other Cyberdragon from your deck to your hand, deck or graveyard to your hand. So we can add any Cyberdragon from your graveyard, being Core, being a Nashter, even the OG Cyberdragon. But from deck, it can pretty much only grab the OG Cyberdragon, so do keep that in mind. However, we're typically going to be doing that second effect. However, that first effect is quite nice, just being a little bit of a modal effect there. I already went over Cyberdragon, but I'm going to go over it again. Here's triple Cyberdragon. That's it for going over Cyberdragon. We are on one Cyberdragon Nashter. It becomes Cyberdragon in field and in grave. We can discard one other monster to special summon it from our hand, and when it's normal or special, we can target a machine with 21 attack or defense in our graveyard, special summon it, and we can't special for the rest of the turn except for machine monsters, and then we can only use Cyberdragon Nashter's effect once per turn. Fun fact, in Orcust, Dingirsu has 2100 defense. Keep that in mind. No, don't keep that in mind. We're not playing Dingirsu in this list, no Orcust here. However, Nashter is very strong for being able to bring back our basic Cyberdragon. It can grab back our Cyberdragon Nova in the graveyard, so we can make a quick, cheap infinity off of that. If we have Seeger in graveyard, Rampage, it can target a lot of different things, so it's very strong, but we'll only want it at one because we're not always going to have stuff in graveyard to target. So we can fetch this from deck using stuff like 1-for-1. We can also add it from deck to hand with Cyber Emergency or our copy of Cyber Repair Plant. But I just mentioned Cyber Emergency, so let's go over that. We can add one light machine monster that cannot be normal summoned or set, or one Cyberdragon monster from your deck to your hand. The activation of this card in its owner's possession was negated by your opponent's card effect and sent to the graveyard. You can discard one card, add this card from your to your hand, and you only activate one Cyber Emergency per turn. If it does get negated, we can activate it again, since the activation would be negated, for it to be able to be added back to your hand. So keep in mind, this doesn't stop Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom can still stop the Cyber Emergency just flat out. However, if it gets something like Solemn Judgmented or something like that, we can always add it back to hand using its own effect, and then activate it again, of course. We're on one Cyber Rev system. We can target a Cyberdragon in our hand or grave and then special summon it. Sorry, we don't even target. We can just special a Cyberdragon from hand or grave, and then it can't be destroyed by card effects straight out. So, great effect. It's just a copy of Monster Reborn that we can search, so we're playing it. One copy of Cyber Repair Plant. If a Cyberdragon's in your graveyard, you can activate one of these effects. If you have 3 or more Cyberdragon, you can activate both. One effect is to either add a light machine monster from your deck to your hand, and the other one is to target a light machine in your grave and shuffle it into deck. Note that it says light machine and not Cyberdragon, so we can add cards from our deck to our hand like Galaxy Soldier, or we can add Jizzy Kiryu, the Star Destroying Kaiju, in order to have a little bit more flexibility with this card. And there's a nice little combo where we can go Core to add Repair Plant, and then we can link Core off for an Almirage, so then we have a Cyberdragon in graveyard to activate that Repair Plant. while also freeing up our main monster zones. And Almirage is really great for protection. So if we're going second, we can even like summon something, and if it gets interacted with, we can summon a Cyber Dragon from hand if we have nothing on field. So nice stuff. We're on triple machine duplication. We can target a machine monster you control with 500 or less attack. Special summon up to 2 monsters from your deck with the same name as that face-up monster. Core, Hertz, and Nashter all consider themselves Cyber Dragon on the field. So if we use machine duplication on field on them, we can grab 2 of the normal Cyber Dragon from our deck straight to the field to make a free rank 5. But that's it for our like quote-unquote Cyber Dragon cards. Now let's get into our Cyberdark cards. We're on 1 copy of Cyberdark Chimera. We can discard 1 spell trap to add a power bond from our deck to hand, and then we can only use dragon or machine cyber monsters as fusion materials this turn. Also, once when you fusion summon this turn, you can also banish monsters from your graveyard as material. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can send 1 Cyberdark monster from your deck to the graveyard with a different name from cards in your graveyard. You can use each effect of Cyberdark Chimera once per turn. We're not really going to be using that second effect, however, that first effect is going to come up because we are going to be able to search our power bond from deck to hand. And how do you say we are going to get the Cyberdark Chimera on the field or even search it in the first place, because it's not a Cyber Dragon. It is a machine, but it can be normal summon, so we can't add it with Cyber Emergency. But we do have Cyberdark Realm, the 1 Cyberdark spell card in here. When this card's activated, you can add 1 Cyberdark monster from your deck to your hand with a different name than the cards in your graveyard. During your main phase, you can immediately after this effect resolves, normal summon 1 Cyberdark monster. You can use the previous effect of Realm once per turn, and then if you equip something, you can do something else. However, we can stop reading there because what this does is it lets you add from your deck to your hand your Chimera, and then the Chimera can pitch a spell to get the power bond and then just kill your opponent right there on the spot. And since Realm gives you that additional normal summon, since it's a Cyber card, we can add it from deck to hand with Cyber Dragon Core. So we go Core, add Realm, Realm add Chimera, Chimera normal summon, Chimera pitch, add power bond, and then we can link off, and then we'll have at least 1 Cyber Dragon in graveyard. Ideally, we'd be able to get another one. Let's say, for example, if we linked off for extra deck monster that's considered Cyber Dragon, which we'll cover a little bit later. But I did mention earlier, we're on triple Galaxy Soldier, allowing us to send 1 other light monster from our hand to the graveyard to special summon this from our hand in defense position, and when it's special summoned, we can activate the effect to add a Galaxy monster from deck to hand. But that secondary part is a once per turn. However, you can add itself from deck to hand. So you can special summon as many of these guys from your hand as you want, as long as you can keep pitching cards. However, you can only search once per turn. So you keep that in mind. However, Galaxy Soldier plus Hertz is a 1.5 card infinity, technically a 2 card. But that's it for our like quote unquote main deck monsters, other than this one that I'm going to be covering in a moment. But we are on triple Clockwork Knight, turning everything into machine monsters for some nice fusion antics. Also gives us a stat boost and them a stat reduction, so nice stuff there. And if it's in our graveyard, we can discard a card, add an Earth Machine monster from our deck to our hand. We can use this effect of Clockwork Knight once per turn. You can only activate 1 Clockwork Knight per turn. Keep in mind, since these are all spells, we are completely fine with overloading on spells since we have Chimera, so we actually kind of want to draw a spell that we don't want to use throughout the course of a turn. So we can draw a card like Foolish Burial Goods or Clockwork Knight that we might not have a use for in order to get that power bond translate into something else. But we are on 1 Foolish Burial Goods in order to send the Clockwork Knight because it can add from deck to hand a Therion King Regulus. We can target a Therion or a machine monster in our graveyard, special summon this card from your hand, and if you do equip that monster to this card, when your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, we can send a Therion monster card from your hand or face of field to the graveyard, negate that effect. If a Therion monster is equipped with this, it gains 700 attack and also gains that secondary effect. However, the main thing is we can go Regulus, target something like Hertz in graveyard, so then we have an Omni negate, and then if we do choose to negate on our opponent's turn, we get that Hertz effect because it was sent to graveyard again to add another card to keep getting more and more advantage. We are on 1 Overload Fusion, just as a random fusion card that is pretty much a game ender. We're on 1 Called by the Grave, 1 for 1 in order to get either our Cyber Dragon Hertz or Cyber Dragon Nashter out from our deck. 1 Triple Tactics Talents in order to try and play around hand traps. I already went over the Jizzy Kiru because it's searchable. We're on triple Nibiru and triple Ghost Ogre because these are light hand traps that we can pitch for Galaxy Soldier so that they serve a dual purpose. Ghost Ogre is going to be good against Tenpai, and Nibiru is going to be good against more rogue decks, but it's also pretty good against some meta decks. But that's it for the main deck. Now let's go on to the extra. Our extra consists of 1 Relinquished Anima, 1 Salamangreat Almirage. These are for our low-level Cyber Dragons. Almirage is specifically for core, however Anima is here for Hertz or for Nashter if we didn't use that secondary effect. We're on one line of the Light Charmer Lustrous. We're a light deck, so we can potentially steal lights from our opponent's graveyards. Not necessarily link climbing, however, a lot of people are starting to play Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, and this is one of the few hand traps that is actually have an on-field effect. Its in-hand effect is also applicable on-field, so if we can steal our opponent's Ghost Ogre, that's a piece of interaction that we can use against them. This is the one card I was mentioning earlier with that combo with Chimera and Core. Here's a Cyber Dragon Seeger. It needs 2 machine monsters, including a Cyber Dragon. This is a machine. This is a Cyber Dragon. And then this card's name becomes Cyber Dragon on the field and graveyard. During each battle phase of this card has not declared an attack. Quick effect, we can target 1 machine monster we control, 2100 or more attack. For the rest of the turn, that monster gains 2100 attack and defense, and neither player takes any battle damage from attacks involving this monster, meaning Cyber Dragon Seeger itself. So it can buff any monster up to at least 4200 attack, which basically means you can win combat almost always. However, this does put a giant target on Seeger's back, so we're mostly just using this as a way to either kill our opponent instantly, or a way to get an extra Cyber Dragon in rotation, like, again, using Core and Chimera to make it. But that's it for our links. We're on a really low link package of 4 monsters, but for XCs, we are on quite a few. We're on one Infinitrack River Stormer. It needs 2 level 5s. We can detach a material to add an Earth Machine from deck to hand. There's Regulus. We're going to be detaching a machine to activate it, so that's going to get that machine in graveyard for it. So pretty much sets up the Regulus by itself. We're on double Cyber Dragon Nova. It needs 2 level 5 machines. Once per turn, you can detach one material from this card. Target 1 Cyber Dragon in your graveyard. Special summon that target. Once per turn, quick effect, you can banish 1 Cyber Dragon from your hand or piece of monster zone. This card gains 2100 attack till the end of turn. If this card in your possession is sent to the graveyard by your opponent's card effect, you can special summon 1 machine fusion monster from your extra deck. Really good against Dogmatica, funny enough, that secondary effect. However, that first effect to target the Cyber Dragon in the graveyard, keep in mind you do need to have a Cyber Dragon in graveyard before detaching in order to activate it. Because you can detach a Cyber Dragon off itself to bring that back, that's not an issue, since it detaches then targets, but in order to even detach, you need to have a Cyber Dragon in graveyard, so do keep that in mind. And that little attack buff effect is cute, but doesn't really come up too frequently. The main reason we're playing Nova is because we can just stack this guy on top. We're on 2 Cyber Dragon Infinity. It needs 3 level 6 light machine monsters, but we can also XC summon it by using a Cyber Dragon Nova as material and transferring the material. It gains 200 attack for each material attached to it, so it's typically going to be at least around 2500. And once per turn, we can target one other face-up attack position monster on the field and attach it to this card as material, so it has a relinquished-like effect, except it's better since it's not like you can only... It's not like you can only have one thing on it. You can add as many as you want if you can go turn by turn and to keep adding more and more. And then once per turn, when a card or effect is activated, quick effect to attach a material from this card, negate that activation, and if you do, destroy it. So just having a negate in archetype that technically isn't once per turn, so you can get multiple affinities on field, it's kind of Kino. However, it is a little bit outdated since it is a card printed in like 2015, 2016. So we do need to have a little bit layered interaction if we're going first, meaning we want to play cards like this one that's in our side deck. We're on 1 Zeus because it's a machine monster. It's a light machine, funny enough, so no conflictions with anything there. And we can just make it if we choose to like attack the River Stormer, worst case scenario. However, we can make it if we punch them really hard with Nova and just manage to not kill them. But that's it for our XCs. Now onto our fusions. We're on double Rampage Dragon. This is the main way we're killing our opponent. It needs 2+ Cyber Dragon monsters. A fusion summon of this card can only be done with the above fusion materials. When this card is fusion summoned, you can target spells and traps on the field up to the number of materials used for its fusion summon and destroy them. Once per turn, you can send up to 2 light machine monsters from your deck to the graveyard, and if you do, each monster sent to the graveyard, this card gains 1 additional attack during each battle phase this turn. That secondary effect is broken, being able to attack 3 times per turn, popping all the spells and traps on summon. Also, what you can do is you can send 2 being a Cyber Dragon Core and a Cyber Dragon Hertz if you haven't normal summoned yet. And then Hertz effect is going to activate to add the core back to hand so you can normal summon it and keep playing. Rampage is really good. We want to make sure we have 2 of them so we always have access to at least 1. We're on 1 Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. This is for the Clockwork Knight. Cyber Dragon and 1 machine monster, except it can't be used as fusion material, and it must be special summon for your extra deck by contact fusing. It's like a Super Poly, except you don't even have to activate it. So as long as you get a Cyber Dragon on their side of the field and they have any amount of machine monsters, you can just eat their whole board up at almost any given time, once there's an open game state, of course. And then for our last 2 cards in our extra deck, we're on 2 Chimera Tech Mega Fleet Dragon. Remember what I was saying about that Contact Fusion? This is the same thing. This basically uses a Cyber Dragon monster and a monster located in the EMZ. So this deck eats Link decks alive, like adding Nister, where they put their big boss monster in EMZ. We can special summon a card from 2005 and then special summon a card from 2017 and own them completely. But that's it for the main and extra deck. Now let's go on to the side. This is just the one card that I wanted to mention because this card's a really good one going first. It lets you banish Cyber Dragon cards at different levels from your hand, face-up field, and graveyard, and destroy an equal number of cards your opponent controls. And if this card on the field is destroyed by a card effect, we can add a Cyber Spell Trap from our deck to our hand. So it floats, not under Cosmic, unfortunately, but it does still float. And also, it doesn't target when it destroys. So do keep that in mind. And typically, we can realistically get that up to 3, being Cyber Dragon Core, Cyber Dragon Hertz, and normal Cyber Dragon. Or we can replace that Hertz with a Naster. However, typically turn 1, we're not going to have all 4 of these engraved, being realistic about it. But that's the deck profile. Thank you all so much for watching. If you still are, give me any thoughts about this deck that you have in the description, and I'm going to try and respond to anything that I see over there. But thank you so much for watching if you still are, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye! Thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you wanted to talk to more Yu-Gi-Oh! Players like yourself, I would highly recommend checking out our Discord server. Link is going to be in the description, as well as the QR code on screen. We do talk somewhat frequently about Yu-Gi-Oh! And the current meta, so I would really enjoy to see you there. As well as we do recently now have channel memberships available on our YouTube channel, where we have 3 different tiers. We have Super Supporter at $2 a month, where you get loyalty badges, emojis, guaranteed comment responses, a shout out at the end of every video, as well as access to the members only Discord channel, where you get early sneak peeks at future videos. There is the Giga Supporter at $5 a month, where you have early access to all new videos about a day or 2 before they go up, as well as all the previous offers. And for $15 a month, we do have our final tier, which is going to be Femboy Fanatic. You get a guaranteed customized video every single month, as well as 1 hour of my time. Could be for anything you'd like. You want a duel? Absolutely. You want me to help build a deck? Absolutely. You want to play some Helldivers? Sure. I'll do anything for an hour once a month. But supporting does help me out quite a lot, and it does help me produce all of these videos. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll be seeing y'all later. Bye-bye.